I know something. You actually have a story out there on WRAL, if I remember correctly, on WRAL Sports about locally here in terms of college basketball. We were seeing the early stages of the succession plan from Roy Williams to Hubert Davis, now going into year 3. Jon Scheyer, the succession plan at Duke, going into his second season after Coach K. It's interesting how the perception year 1 for Jon Scheyer and what year 1 was like for Hubert Davis, how the narrative and things were very, very much different between the two. There are a lot of people in year 1 of Hubert Davis wanted him gone, it seemed like, at least from a fan base perspective.
And there's not a bad word you can find out there about Jon Scheyer. And I'm not saying that there should be, but inevitably there's going to be a downturn. And how are people going to react? Because that's just the way sports are, right? Like you come in this season, last year Scheyer had the benefit of not having necessarily as much expectations with that team to begin with. You know, he gets Derek Lively and Dariq Whitehead are hurt early on. They come in, people immediately see they're not Paolo Banchero, and people aren't ready to anoint Duke as a team that's going to make the national championship again. But this year he's got 4 starters coming back. He's got the number 2 recruiting class in the nation. Last year's team fizzled out in the NCAA tournament to Tennessee when once, I was somebody that was buying in and I had them winning my whole bracket. So they come in next year, underperform. All of a sudden, that leash for Jon Scheyer is gone.
You think so? Think that quick?
It doesn't take long. Look at Hubert Davis. He made the national championship. I do think there's key differences between Hubert and Scheyer. Everything that Scheyer does seems well calculated, well thought out. He seems to engender himself very well to the media, which is going to give you a longer leash. Hubert Davis seems to keep the media at a little bit of an arm's length. Everyone that you talk to says Hubert Davis is a very nice guy.
Sure.
But he keeps his circle tight. Family, UNC, protecting the players. But there was times last year where he seemed to lash out, where he would speak in platitudes when he was cornered. And I don't think a lot of that landed well with the media. I don't think some of that landed well with some of the players that have left the program since, how things were coached there. So I think there are some reasons for why Hubert is viewed the way he is now and Scheyer is as well.
Yeah.
But it's just interesting to see, coming off of a Succession season finale,
no spoilers,
how
please.
we view these guys and what it's like to follow a legend. Because there's a reason Coach K and Roy Williams are legends, because they built this. Specifically, Coach K built the whole thing.
Yeah, Coach K built the whole thing.
And he set up the landing space for Scheyer to take it and run, and he has so far. But the further you get removed from that legend, the harder and harder it gets.
I will say, I think one of the reasons why people were extremely critical of Hubert last season was because of the national championship game that they got to, and defeating Coach K and all that in his final game at Cameron, final game ever
Hard to
in
top.
the Final Four. Hard to top that. But yeah, you go in preseason number 1, and then it seemed like the team that we saw in November was the same team that we saw in March at the ACC tournament. Like nothing progressed.
Yeah, where Sheyer's team did.
Sheyer's
got
team
better.
did. And I think that's where people were starting to realize or starting to point out, is like, wait a second. Why isn't this team progressively getting better, evolving over the course of the season? Where Duke had to deal with a lot of injuries early on in the year. Derek Lively was hurt. Dariq Whitehead. 2 guys are going to be first-round draft picks that were hurt early in the season, but we saw the team evolve and grow during the season. And yeah, it seemed like everything was calculated with Jon Scheyer. And again, things slowly continue to build over the course of the season. And would not surprise me if Duke is a preseason top 5 team this upcoming season, where we saw with North Carolina, high expectations, rightfully so. You were coming off a national championship game and you have 4 of your 5 starters back. Yeah, people are going to look at you with high expectations, and they didn't live up to it. And again, even leading up to that run last year of February and March for UNC, there were a lot of questions about Hubert Davis during that stretch too, because a lot of people felt like the team was underperforming. And so that negative perception was already there for Hubert Davis in year 1, because I know when February rolled around, I forget who was it they lost to. Was it Virginia Tech? I think in February, I can't remember off the top of my head. But they had a February loss, and a lot of people were looking around going, what's happening here?
Right.
This is not the way it's supposed to be going here.
We had the parallel from the previous year the whole time, where it's like, well, this time last year they were at this plate as well. And then all of a sudden it was like they ran out of time to turn the ship around, and it never did. But one of the things I love about working here, Dennis, is everything these schools and these coaches do is in relation to the other.
Mm-hmm.
And, Shire's coming in. He's got this great class, these great returning starters. Well, Hubert has quietly made some chess moves here. All the players that have left in the portal, short of Caleb Love, I don't think are as good necessarily as the players that are coming in. A Cormac McCarthy, a Harrison Ingram.
Cormac Ryan?
Cormac Ryan, excuse me. Cormac McCarthy wrote The Road, which is a little maybe something we could relate to, the end of the world with this Live Tour conversation we're having as well. Yeah. But maybe a Freudian slip there. And then you've got the reclassification of Elliot Cadeau coming in, where now they have the point guard into the mix, and the chess moves are fun to follow. And I do think Hubert's running a little bit under the radar here with this season, where this team could exceed those expectations instead of underperforming them, where Duke now is set up to be the one to underperform.
I'm thinking, I know we're talking Duke and Carolina here, but I'm also wondering if the better team this upcoming season won't be NC State. Because it seems like not Hubert Davis, but it seems like Kevin Keatts has figured out the transfer portal.
Right.
And the fact that you're able to go get Jarkel Joyner, DJ Burns, who we had last year in the transfer portal, big-time players. DJ Burns coming back now after Quavion Smith leaving for the NBA after 2 seasons of the program. Right move, in my opinion. Jarkel Joyner out of eligibility, but it seems like he is maneuvering through the transfer portal to really put together his roster. It's interesting how each of these 3 teams have built their programs, at least with their rosters for this upcoming season. UNC is a blend of like Davis and Baycott recruits that were there. Even Roy Williams brought him in. Like Hubert Davis didn't bring those guys in. Roy Williams brought those guys in, but it's also a blend of. I know Hubert Davis on the staff, so it's a blend of guys brought in along with transfer portal. Duke, it is mostly recruits that were bought in. Couple pieces here and there, maybe 1 or 2 that are from the transfer portal. That's it. They also didn't have anyone go into the transfer portal, which is something that I think only a couple programs across the country actually had Division I. I think it was them and UCLA, at least amongst the Power 5 schools. So they didn't have anyone go into the portal. They really had to go into the portal to get anybody out. And it seemed like NC State really diving hard. I know they got some of their recruits, but it seems like Hubert Davis really diving hard into the transfer portal. So it's interesting how each of these 3 programs here have built their rosters for this upcoming season. I think this is going to be one of the more exciting upcoming college basketball seasons. I think these 3 programs as a whole really are building something strong for this upcoming season. I expect and I hope all 3 are in the NCAA tournament this upcoming year.
Yeah, I mean, I think Keatts, you look at him in particular, like some of the things that sounded like excuses from him the last couple years have all just proven out to be reasons.
Yeah.
When he talked about the team that should have made the NCAA tournament had the COVID cut it off. And then the next year's team just limited by how they could practice, how they could bond, the injuries they had to Manny Bates. That team never really fit. It never really gelled. It never really made sense. And then last year, like you said, nails the portal.
It all comes in.
And these guys on the paper, you're like, okay, Winthrop, all right, where is that guy from? Okay, a small guard from Ole Miss. Okay, all right, yeah, sure, that sounds good. And then I remember going out to see them play, and I'm looking around, I'm like, these guys look good.
Yeah.
These guys look good.
They looked good.
And I've seen some. I was there as one of the commits for this year, was doing his little tour with Keatts, driving around in the Range Rover.
There you go.
Keatts is a charismatic guy.
Oh, he really is.
He makes you feel good. And I think that's part of it.
I'm a big fan. I'll be honest, I'm a big fan of all 3 of the head coaches. From Davis, Keatts, to Jon Scheyer. I'm a big fan, having spoken with them in some capacity. I enjoy all 3 of those guys a lot. And to me, I think it's hard to replace legends. Kay, Roy. I mean, it was hard enough for Roy to eventually follow Dean Smith. I know a couple coaches in between there, but it's hard to replace those legends. I mean, right. NC State's still trying to replace Jim Valvano when you think about it in terms of like legend in the program of coaching.
Well, I'm glad you bring that up because
they're still trying to do that.
If Hubert struggles this year, he is going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
Now, whether that's right or wrong, I think it's kind of hard to. In today's world with the transfer portal, your leash is shorter than ever. And if you're a brand like North Carolina, when you have a national stage, a Jordan brand, how can you not get these kind of recruits? How can you not win? How can you not make the NCAA tournament? Now, last year was a perfect storm of factors, but there's no more. That's the world we live in now. Win or go home. Now, I'm not saying I don't know what's going to happen. I'm interested to see because we've seen one side of the coin where it all works out. We've seen the other side where it doesn't, and now we've got a new mix of players where he doesn't have the excuses anymore of like, oh, maybe some of these guys were Roy players, or oh, maybe Caleb and RJ didn't fit. Well, now you've been able to tinker. You've done what Kevin Keatts did. You tinkered.
Yeah.
It worked out for him. He saved his job. I don't think Hubert's on as hot of a seat as Keatts was going into this year, but if he struggles this year, he will be.